We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside. Or maybe you're in the mood for seafood. Big Sur Oyster Bar has fresh seafood prepared right before your eyes. Savor freshly shucked oysters, crab legs jambalaya, shrimp and lobster. Beers on tap and a selection of fine wines are perfect to pair with your seafood favorite. Whether lunch or dinner, you'll love this fun atmosphere, located just off the casino floor. Ready to shake things up? Step back in time and treat yourself to one of the oldest restaurant chains in the country. Steak and Shake, famous for original mouth-watering steak burgers and hand-dipped milkshakes in a variety of flavors. For some old-fashioned fun, try Steak and Shake.
Welcome in. Happy Monday. Happy Veterans Day, everyone. To everyone who has served this country, we thank you very much. I'm Jeff Parles. Ryan McCormick is here. Chris Andrews is here as well. Of course, Chris just bringing this up before we get into tonight's game and everything that transpired this weekend, including, I would say, a quarter of the NFL's fan bases being so absurdly ticked off at their teams at a level that I can't even remember. I do want to bring up Mr. Gahn does an amazing job of every day of the year supporting veterans and always making this a great place for everyone, including veterans. But today is just another great job by Mr. Gahn all the way across the board.
Free buffet for anybody who's served and the guest. So two comps. In the buffet, it's a long line. A lot of people take advantage of it. We know it every year. And Michael Kennedy, he's the restaurant manager. He gets them in as good as he can. But when you have this kind of a bottleneck, there's only so much you could do, but it's a great deal.
So Ryan didn't even realize what the line was for.
Yeah, when I got here at 8 o'clock this morning, the line was to the hot dog cart, and I thought it was going upstairs to like the movie theater or something. I'm like, what kind of movie is premiering on a Monday? And then all of a sudden, Jeff tells me it's the buffet, and I realize it's all the way out through the entire hotel.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's past Starbucks. I just got a Starbucks. Yeah. It's past Starbucks. Oh. It's filtering
amazing
into the check-in line. So, Michael does it, and obviously costs us a couple of bucks, but he does.
It's well worth it.
Yeah, he's well worth it, and he's in. He's in so many Hall of Fames I can't keep track, but I think he's in the Air Force Hall of Fame for doing things like this.
Absolutely, 100%. 100%. All right, Chris, let's go to tonight's game, and then we'll go to the weekend that was. Okay. So you guys just touched 3 for the second time today momentarily, and they took it off you immediately.
Didn't last long.
This is a no kidding, don't blink from Vinny's line. Lasted less than 5 minutes. Back to 2.5 tonight on the Rams at home. Total 48.5, hosting Miami. Really, we just don't know if Tyreek Hill's going to play or not. That's really more so than anything what's holding us up.
I'm assuming he isn't by the numbers.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So it's a hand injury for Hill. And Brian pointed this out to me, man. I'll just say this real quick. A lot of books, especially books that are not only based in Nevada and are nationwide books, don't even have Jalen Waddle props up right now because of the potential absence of Tyreek Hill. To the books who aren't doing this outside of this state, put the lines up. You may lose a little bit. You may also win a lot because Jalen Waddle last week had 2 catches for -4 yards last week. So enough with the scared bookmaking, guys. Let's just get the numbers out there for everyone to bet. But for tonight, Ryan and I were talking about this before with Miami, where the AFC is just a mess all the way across the board. Even the good teams have a whole bunch of flaws. There are a lot of bad teams. The Bengals, who are 4-6, are in premium playoff position right now, only a game behind Denver with a head-to-head matchup in Week 17. If Miami wins today at 3-6, they're still somewhat alive in this chase, as ridiculous as that may be to a lot of people out there.
Yeah, I mean, what do we got? 7 teams are going to make it.
Yeah.
There's Team 7, it's probably going to be, how the hell did they make it? You know, you're going to look at that. But, and somebody always comes from mid-pack right about this time of year, and it can go both ways. Look at the Eagles last year, went the other way, and somebody's going to come out of nowhere this year, make the tournament, and, you never know, can make some noise once you get in there. I mean, it's a football game, for God's sake. Crazy things happen.
Yeah, no, Jeff and I were talking pre-show, like, if Miami loses this game and is 2-7, you need to win out the rest of the year if you even hope to make the playoffs.
Right.
Trying to get a tiebreak for that 7 seed. But if you lose tonight, I think your season might be over for them.
I don't see 8 straight wins for Miami. No. I just don't see it.
I'm with you. And mixed in there now, they play 4 teams in the AFC that currently have 3 or less wins the rest of the way, and 2 against New York. They also have to go to Green Bay, and they also have to play the Niners. So good luck trying to get through that stretch without a loss for the Miami Dolphins. The Rams end of things, that NFC West has turned into quite the race, but not in the fashion that any of us imagined going into the season, where the Cardinals might just be genuinely good.
Yeah, what are they, a half a game up, I think? Is that
so the Cardinals have played 1 extra game than the Niners, but they beat the Niners.
Yeah.
So they're 6-4 with a head-to-head win against the 5-4 Niners.
Yeah.
And they also beat the Rams earlier this year as well. So they've done what they needed to within the NFC West.
Well, bookmakers, and I'm definitely guilty of this, we can be very stubborn about things. And I have not liked Kyler Murray from the time he got into the league, but I do have eyes. And I can see all of a sudden maybe he's figuring it out. Maybe I really like the coach, by the way. I really like him a lot. But the defense, there's some flaws there too. They got a lot of flaws everywhere, but like everybody. But this team all of a sudden is pretty darn good. And I really have raised my power ratings on them, lowered their odds to win conference and the Super Bowl. I mean, they're a legit team.
I'm not sure what the actual numbers were for last year, but I do know that under Jonathan Gannon, they did struggle last year, and they
definitely
They struggled, but they still were in 1-score games. They were in games that they could win, and just things didn't go their way. So they've been competitive under Jonathan Gannon, and I think you're getting to see that this year.
Well, I think Gannon's one of those guys, too. You look at, and we talk about players, particularly quarterbacks, figuring out the game. I think coaches do, too. Young coaches. And he was a young coach, lost a lot of 1-score games last year. But even last year, you could see some improvement. You saw signs. And then this year, they've put it together pretty good.
Well, remember, before Kyler Murray came back last year, the thought was going into last year, Arizona might be historically bad.
Yeah.
That was the thought. That was a prevailing thought from a lot of people. They were as good of a 4-13 team as I can remember, and they went over some win totals. There were some 3.5s out there throughout the year.
Well, I was probably guilty of that.
I think you had 3.5 too, Chris, if memory serves me correctly.
I thought they'd be historically bad.
Yeah. I thought they were too.
They had a chance to be historically bad. Yeah.
And they won 4 games a year ago, and now Kyler Murray's been healthy. And yesterday, I mean, that game was over fast.
Oh man,
fast.
Oh.
With the Cardinals yesterday scoring on all but one of their possessions yesterday in a 31-6 annihilation of the Jets, whose season can't end quickly enough at this rate. I will ask you this, Chris. Just going to yesterday, because the underdogs finally bid back yesterday for the first time in a while. And one underdog that bid back was your team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who went on the road in what was kind of a bizarre game, in all honesty. Where
you look at that final score, it looks like a classic.
Yeah,
no,
it was not a classic.
It was like both teams played about a quarter as poorly as they've played all year. And for Pittsburgh, look, I'm guilty of this for sure. When they made the move to Russell Wilson, my thought was, what are they doing? Why are they benching Justin Fields? Fields has been more than good enough for them to win games, potentially even win the AFC North. Russ looked done by the end of last year with the Broncos. What are we doing here? Since then, the Pittsburgh Steelers offense has been tremendous. And ever since the second half of that Sunday night game of Russ's first start against the Jets, I mean, just look at what the Steelers offense has done. 37, 26, 28. Granted that 26 against the Giants was probably the minimum amount of points they could have scored in that game. And here they are with Baltimore on deck and a Raven defense that has just been pretty awful for the most part this year and has been bailed out completely by the fact that Lamar Jackson's been the best player in the NFL by margin this year.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I think we talked before the show, every AFC team has flaws. Now, in our brain, because we've seen this for 20 years, the Ravens have been a great defense.
Yeah.
They are anything but a great defense this year. I made that game pick 'em. It's 3, and there's some money on the Ravens, and I don't know. Meanwhile, did you see how many terrible towels were in the Washington Stadium?
Not overly. That's called buying your tickets early, because I can guarantee you if the Washington fans knew what this season was going to be, they wouldn't have sold that early.
Well, I'll tell you, when there was a big exodus from Pittsburgh, like guys like me and Jimmy and my whole family, pretty much, a lot of guys came to Vegas, some to L.A. like Frank.
Yep.
And but a lot of guys went to the Chesapeake area, Baltimore and Washington. So there's a lot of transplants there. So not just the Steelers don't just travel well; they have fans throughout the country.
I'm stunned by that number, by the way. I'm with you. I think take your phrase real quick. I like your number better.
Yeah.
Tomlin is a home dog in division.
Yeah.
I think we all know what we're setting up for in this game, at least what we're going to play. Who knows if we'll play out that way, right?
Jackson does not have a good record against the Steelers.
Correct. Yeah, he's been struggled historically. Kansas City. Kansas City wins again.
Yeah.
They're 9-0.
Yeah.
This was probably because, again, a lot of people like to whine about them because they've won their 3 titles, and everyone likes to whine about the team that consistently wins.
Yeah.
This one they were genuinely lucky to get away with winning this game, where they continuously failed in the red zone on offense in this game. Denver has a chippy field goal to win the game. Kansas City blocks it. They win. They don't cover. Game goes under. But this is, I think there's something about, at least in the NFL, where all these games are close. I mean, we're on pace for the most amount of one-score games in NFL history this season. We are, yes. Yes. There's just something about finding a ways to win games. And this team, I mean, yesterday, a blocked field goal in the NFL to win the game, that never happens, Chris.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the offense so much. Well, I mean, what did they score, 16? I think,
16 yesterday.
But, I think we talked about it, Jeff, on the show on Friday, where Mahomes reminds me of Brady, is that Brady was not great all the time, but he was great when he had to be. And that's kind of Mahomes. And he's been anything but great this year. Now we're getting to the playoffs, and I still don't think anybody really wants to face Kansas City in a playoff game. Although I kind of like Buffalo this week against them. But, again, it's an important game, obviously, but it's not a playoff game. So we'll see what happens there. But that's the thing with Mahomes, and they do find ways to win, but they've been anything but dominant this year.
Brian, I'll just say, we know this historically now in this Mahomes-Allen era for both of these teams. Yeah. When Kansas City plays Buffalo in the regular season, the Bills usually win.
Yeah.
When Kansas City plays Buffalo in the playoffs, Kansas City only wins. Yeah. So, I think that's a totally fair number. Buffalo just shy of 3 at home. Yeah. I tend to agree with you. I would lean to the home favorite in this game.
Even though my numbers came to 2, but I kind of lean towards Buffalo. A funny story about the Kansas
City. Please.
So you guys have met my wife. She's a darling person and a warm-hearted, one of the most kind-hearted people you've ever met in your life. Mm-hmm. She hates Kansas City. She's a Raider fan. She hates Kansas City and hates Patrick Mahomes with a passion. So yesterday. Now, I don't know what she does. She has her own account. She does her own thing. If she asks me a game, I might tell her. But 90% of what she plays on her own. And I always bust Jay Cornegay's balls. She's had an account there for 8 years. They can't beat her. It's unbelievable. She bets $10 a game. Anyway, so yesterday, I don't know what she has or anything, but when Kansas City blocks that field goal, my phone starts dinging right away. It's a message. And Vinny's sitting right next to me. I says, Vinny, I guarantee this is my wife. So not only, this is how bad she hates Kansas City. I gave out a teaser on Friday, right? She bet the teaser. She didn't lay 2. She laid 1.5. She also took Denver plus the 9 earlier in the week. So she has the game middle. She's so pissed off that they actually could pull out there. She middled the game, and she was still mad that Kansas City had the balls to win this game. And, oh, man, it was even when I got home, she was still just bitching about Kansas City. She just hates them. Middled the game and hated the result.
We just had to watch Patrick Mahomes run around the field with his arms. So,
that's amazing.
That didn't help. Yeah, that didn't help.
Chris, I want to ask you about college before we let you go back to work, because that was a pretty other than the first drive for each team, Ole Miss really whacked Georgia on Saturday. As soon as Dart's interception, Georgia capitalizes, you're thinking, this is going to be one of those where Georgia's defense just manhandles them.
And Dart getting hurt.
Well,
and Dart got hurt, right?
Dart getting hurt.
Boy, I tell you, the backup
looked great on that one drive.
Not bad.
Yeah,
not
great.
We were back there, and I said, well, I mean, he got recruited to Mississippi. He's probably pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, he was real good.
Well, it was one of those where I look up, I had the game on mute because I was on the phone or something. I forget what the reason was, and I see a lefty in there, and I'm like, what happened to Dart? And that's Austin Simmons, who led that, which in retrospect was a critical drive to the whole game, where if Ole Miss goes 3 and out and Georgia has it up 7-0, who knows? Maybe this turns into a Georgia rout. Instead, he leads that touchdown drive. Georgia scores only 3 points the rest of the game. And Ole Miss, where, boy, do they want that Kentucky game back now.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't for that, they'd probably be the projected SEC champion in the college football playoff right now. Chris, they're as good as anyone if they're going to play like they've played the last month and a half now.
We've always had questions about their defense, for the last couple of years. Their defense came to play the other day. And by the way, what's that kid's name? Simmons?
Simmons.
He is really accurate. I don't know about arm strength, and I don't want to pretend like I'm a scout, but he was accurate.
He was amazing on that drive.
Yeah, man. I mean, he was nailing some guys. That was terrific.
But it's so interesting in this era now because Georgia plays Tennessee this week. If Georgia wins, then the whole SEC basically is actually not basically the only team in the SEC that will not have 2 or more losses would be Texas. If Georgia beats Tennessee, assuming Texas this week, who's Texas playing? They're playing Arkansas. All right. Yeah. Texas conceivably could lose that game, but they're a big favorite. It is going to be fascinating to see what the college football committee does. I have a feeling we know what we would do if we were in charge of it, but boy, I don't know what they're going to actually do with all those
what you would do? What would you do?
Right now, well, first off, I'm going squarely off the eye test.
Yeah.
Because the Big 12, we'll get to BYU later in the show.
Okay.
That BYU team, all you need to know about that BYU team is the line this weekend coming up. They are 3.5-point favorites.
No, not anymore.
What are they now?
3.
So even better. Makes my point even better.
Okay,
now.
Go ahead. When you're done, I'm going to make my point. But
it makes my point even better. They're a 3-point favorite at home against a team that's 3-6.
Right.
Now, it's a 3-6 team that has had horrific luck this year, but still, they're 3-6, the Kansas Jayhawks. If BYU loses a game, period, I would KO them completely, unless if they happen to win the Big 12 title and they have to take them. That league is a one-bid league. With Miami finally losing over the weekend, the ACC is a one-bid league to me. And then Boise State gets that last bid unless if they lose. Nevada gave them all they could handle on Saturday night.
Easily could have won that game.
Yeah, I mean,
I was flipping back and forth, so I didn't see the whole game.
You know what? I got to give Nevada's new coach credit because they were the worst team in the country basically last year. Yep. They're only going to win 4 or 5 games at most, but that's a real football team. Yeah. They're on the right path to at least be reasonable in the Mountain West. And then what I would do right now, 4. So that's 9. That's 9.
9 open spots.
9 open spots. The remaining 9 are from the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yeah.
That's how I would do it right now.
Okay. Well, I thought you were going to say who is number one.
Number one in
well, it has to be Texas at this point.
What, for the SEC?
Yeah.
And until they lose, yes.
Yeah.
Even though I don't.
For the SEC.
And Oregon's the number 1 team in the country until they lose,
I don't have them rated that high either, by the way. But I mean, they've done what they're supposed to do. Okay. So BYU.
Yeah.
I'm making my numbers.
Yeah.
And I try to be as objective as possible, just going by the numbers and then from there, like I always said, the power ratings just give you a place to start. 4 come up with BYU. Okay. I'm there. Boy, I like Kansas plus the 4. I think Kansas has a great shot to beat them this week. And so I opened it. I think I opened it 3.5. Do you have it up there, Jeff?
I'm going to double check you, but that sounds right.
And then before you know it, I went to 3. I don't want to take a bet. I want to need Kansas this week. I don't know if I could do that, but I would like to need Kansas in that game.
Yeah, you open 3.5. You're at 3. Everyone, it's a 3.
I went there without a bet, which I don't like to do.
Kansas money line will be in the account for me this weekend. Just at some point, I got to be like. It's the opposite of the Purdue syndrome, by the way, this year, Chris.
Right.
At some point, I got to beat BYU, and then I'm going to be proven correct about them the whole way through. Which, by the way, Purdue didn't cover again over the weekend.
By the way, your team.
Yes.
I don't know about what's the quarterback. What's his status?
I would be shocked if Cook plays this weekend.
Okay. Money is showed on Missouri this week, and I got to tell you,
that's interesting.
I'm doing my numbers, and again, trying to be as objective as possible. I can't believe how high I have South Carolina rated.
Well, that was. It was lost in the middle of the day on Saturday.
Right.
South Carolina.
I had Vandy.
Yeah, South Carolina beat the crap out of Vandy.
Yes, they did.
That game was never really competitive.
No,
and
I had that on one of my TVs, and let me just tell you, I was impressed.
No,
they're good.
So actually,
that's a good team.
It's funny. I actually had this exact conversation with my dad earlier today about South Carolina. South Carolina this year has had to play. All right, their easiest conference game is going to end up being Kentucky. Think about that for a second. There you had to play LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma, A&M, Vandy, Missouri, Kentucky's your 8 conference games.
Wow. What's their record in conference?
Right now, they've only lost 3. They lost by a field goal to LSU.
Yeah.
They got blown out by Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And Alabama had to stop them on a 2-point conversion to beat them by 2.
Well, I'll tell you.
It's a good team.
They can't. They're going to get into some bowl. And they're going to be, if everybody stays in town, we don't know. I don't know what happened. I quit taking, like when I do my projections, I totally eliminate the bowl games because who knows if they're trying to win. But this is a good team. I would not want to face this team right now.
All I'm going to tell you is, Chris, and this is no fault to you, that Palmetto State battle the last weekend of the season against Clemson, that game's at Clemson. And I know Clemson, at least for me, Clemson is probably going to come too big of a favorite in that game.
I wouldn't count on it.
And if they're not, I still like South Carolina in that game. I'll tell you what. How high do you have South Carolina? Like, are they in your top 15 now?
They're number 10.
Whoa.
I did my numbers this morning.
I guess I'm wrong then. Okay.
Where's that game at? That Clemson game?
It's at Memorial, so it's in Clemson. So what? Clemson 2 then 3 based off your numbers?
I'm not sure. Well, they would be. I would have South Carolina 2 at this point.
I like your number better.
At this point. We still got 3 weeks to go?
3 to go. And they
2 to go or 3 to go?
Well, granted, one of those 2 games before Clemson, they're playing Wofford. I don't think you have a number on Wofford.
I don't.
Against it, yeah.
Do you have the? We have that on the bowl card.
Oh
right?
yes.
Yeah, that's on.
Ryan, it's right next to you.
Okay, yeah.
Right
Anybody that filled that out early and figured Clemson was a gimme, you might want to rethink that one.
Yeah. There's the bowl card. Again, $25,000 guaranteed, $5 entry. Just make sure it's in by
9 o'clock.
Well, I'm going to say a little bit earlier. Make sure you're in by 8. Make sure you're in by 8:30 on that Saturday morning if you want to guarantee, because those lines that Saturday after Thanksgiving are going to be long here at the South Point.
It won't be as long as the buffet.
Well, nothing will.
But that's the busiest weekend of the year for us, and I got to tell you, maybe my favorite weekend of the year.
It's a tremendous one.
Because who doesn't like Thanksgiving dinner? And then you follow that up with 3 great days of football.
Well, I will tell you, the Thanksgiving NFL games. You might be enjoying your dinner a lot longer than usual this year.
Who are they?
Bears and Lions,
okay,
which might be the best of the bunch at this point.
Are we making Ryan work that day?
No, we're not.
No.
Well, he might welcome it at this point.
So he'll be drinking early.
Yeah.
Let's put it.
Giants, Cowboys, which
That's gonna be a fun
awful.
Game,
I might do the cooking during
Yeah, that might
game.
be. And then Dolphins, Packers could be good if Miami gets their act together. But boy, that middle game, oh my God, that Giant Cowboy game is going to have the Benny Hill music the whole time. So, Chris,
You guys got to go. Man.
we're
We're
ready
too
to.
long.
Oh no, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good.
Okay.
The people, I know the chat's active as always. So
Yeah, we do have fun do have a bunch in the chat. People were asking about your Steelers. Chris Brady likes Tua, did not throw an interception tonight. We've got Mini Dar in there for a knock against the Broncos by Jeff. We got Vince, and it's been a fun chat. But Chris, before you go, I did want to ask you.
Okay.
We know the polls moved Georgia from 3 to 10, and obviously polls don't make prices. But what was your power rating shift in the drop for Georgia?
Well, I have Georgia. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have them number 6.
Okay.
And before this week, oh God, it's hard. I didn't. Well, I had them probably 3 or 4.
Okay.
Okay.
Just down 2.
I mean, like I said, the polls.
Right.
Useless.
Just they say some of the dumbest things. And I said it last week on the show too. Joe, you listen to Joe Fortenbaugh. Otherwise, they got writers giving games. They don't know what the hell they're doing. Joe Fortenbaugh does his homework. And otherwise, you go on these, every game is over, more, whatever it is. No, listen to Fortenbaugh, who's a friend of the show, by the way.
Yes, love Joe. Yeah. Love Joe for sure. Thanks.
Okay, guys.
Chris Andrews, everyone. All right, Ryan, let's go into tonight's game a little bit further. All I'll say is with tonight's game, the Rams, with a win tonight, make that NFC West race the most intriguing race by far in the National Football League. Because if they win, you have 3 teams with 4 losses. 6-4 Arizona, 5-4 San Francisco, 5-4 Rams. By the way, back to 3 again on this game. We'll get the exact Tyreek Hill designation in a few moments. But Ryan, I'll just ask you this, because you have the Rams higher rated than I.
Yep.
Just what would you look to do here with this Ram team tonight? Because this is Miami's season. If you lose, look, could Miami rattle off 8 in a row at the end of the year? They could. They have enough talent. I would be shocked if they did. But if they lose tonight and are 2-7, forget it. This season where they there we go. Actually, we broke the news on our own. Adam Schefter, Tyreek Hill will play tonight. I should say Tyreek Hill says he is playing tonight. Yep. Let's make that clarification on that. So, look, it's got a little more difficult than with Tyreek in the lineup here tonight for LA.
Yeah, that was the key to the side that I'll be playing. Now, instead of it being a confident play on the Rams minus the 3, it's more just a lean on the Rams minus 3. I went and looked at the history between these 2 teams. Just a fun note here. The Dolphins lead this matchup, Dolphins versus Rams, 12-2 all time. The Los Angeles Rams have not won a game at home in Los Angeles against the Dolphins in this matchup. Last time the Rams won a game, period, in this matchup the only time that the Los Angeles Rams, so when they moved to St. Louis, they beat them once. The only time the Los Angeles Rams beat the Miami Dolphins was October 3rd of 1976. So it's been almost 50 years since the Rams beat the Dolphins in Los Angeles. I would like to say it happens again, it happens tonight. But yes, like to Jeff's point, I do have the Rams power rated as my 9th highest team in the National Football League. That is with the offensive weapons of Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Kyren Williams, and Matthew Stafford, all healthy. Those 4 healthy for the Rams. The Rams are 8-2 straight up. So if you span that over a 17-game season, you probably have a 12-4 or 13, 12.5, 13.5, 12.5, 4.5 win-loss record. So I think the Rams are a very good team, and the Dolphins are kind of getting back into their groove, getting Tua back, and Tyreek Hill dealing with some injury concerns. The wrist for a receiver is going to be a big factor. So I would be wary on Tyreek Hill props tonight if you're looking at those.
So I'll just go with this real quick on the Rams. You're in a scenario here with LA where, like I said at the open, this is a potentially jammed division,
Yep.
where you have three teams that are all together, and I'm not so sure how good any of these teams are, because the Cardinals, again, are totally out of left field, unexpected to do anything this year. The last 2 weeks had just smashed both of our favorite teams on the desk. The Rams, I mean, their season, I mean, you go back a month here for the Rams, they're 1-4.
Yeah.
Going into that Raider game, it's like, oh, we're talking about two of the worst teams in the NFL. And then the Rams have gotten healthy, gotten the receivers back, got a little bit healthier on the offensive line, have won 3 straight games. Now, last week's game was one of the weirdest games of the entire season, that win in overtime against Seattle. But this is a scenario for me with the Rams where I'm looking in game. I want to see who gets out early in this game. And if Miami gets out early and the Rams have a problem covering these race cars on the outside and Waddle and Hill, then it's probably not a good night for LA. If they're able to slow down the receivers on the outside, this is probably going to be a grinded game, and you're probably going to want it under here. So this is more of an in-game scenario more so than anything, if we're looking from a traditional sense to me, Ryan.
Yeah, I think when you look at the game script in this one, at least when I do, if it's going to be an air raid offense type game, I think that favors the Rams when you have Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and a Matthew Stafford that has proven for over a decade now that he can do an air raid offense, no problem. So for the Dolphins, I don't think they want to be chucking it down the field all game to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I do think it is more of a yards after catch game, hand the ball off to Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert. But speaking of which, we do have Sean Higgs in the chat saying Mostert under 8.5 rush attempts. But I would be looking at not the longest catches for Waddle and Hill. I'd be looking at the receptions more so than the yardages for those two receivers as well.
Okay, can I just bring something up real quick on the Hill injury? Hill apparently is playing with a torn ligament in his wrist.
That can't be fun.
Okay, don't we have to bet the under on the receptions here in this game?
Yeah, then
and 5.5. I mean,
than anything. Yeah,
like if he beats us, so be it. How you like the torn ligament in your wrist catching NFL passes? That doesn't seem like something you should be playing through at this point.
But then that would be more, you're going rainbow ball, trying to catch it like a loaf of bread versus putting your hands up and taking it to the ulna and the radius, whichever side it is.
It all works the same way, right? Wow, I'm a little surprised on that. Let's go to the Dolphins props actually while we're at it here. Because this is even 6.5 earlier in the day, mostly 5.5 now. Of all the Tyreek unders, that's the one I want because he could accidentally hit you for an 80-yard play and then you're toast on everything else.
Yep.
But a game where he goes 3 for 94 is, I think, a lot more likely than a game where he goes 6 for 49 or something like that. So it would only be receptions under on this. There have not been a lot of Waddle props in the market, if any, because of what I said at the beginning of the show.
Didn't know if we was playing.
What do you think of Achane stuff tonight? What do you think of that, Ryan?
Well, so his receptions, he's gone over each of the last 2 weeks. But other than that, he's let me make sure I got this right. Devon Achane, 4-4 this year on over 5.5 catches, so 6 catches in 4 of the 8 games they played this year. Back-to-back games with 8 targets, overs in both. So with Tyreek Hill being not necessarily limited, but not so much of a threat, I would look to Achane being able to get swing passes and that kind of stuff. So over on his receptions could be a good look at. His attempts, 2 and 6 this year, over 12.5 attempts or 20 attempts. So not good for Devon Achane. If you're thinking he's going to get those attempts, he has not done that so far this year, even with games that Tua did not play. And then on that prop sheet between Achane, Hill, and Jonnu Smith, I do like Jonnu Smith's receptions props over the 3.5. He's gone over the last 2 weeks. And again, if Tyreek's going to be limited, Tua's going to have to look elsewhere. And Jonnu Smith has gotten an increasing amount of plays and reps in this Dolphins offense the last couple of weeks. So I do like Jonnu Smith over the 3.5 receptions, and tempted on the 17.5 longest reception, but going to need the Dolphins to press the field a little bit there.
Looking at the Rams side of things, Kyren Williams has been a fantasy football hero so far this year. What a year for Kyren Williams, and honestly, what a find by the Rams. Basically an unknown in the middle of last season has turned into one of the 5 best running backs in the NFL at the moment. Obviously, you have the 2 big-time wide receivers as always. Nakua is obviously coming off that bizarre week where he got tossed for throwing a punch. Cooper Kupp just doesn't look the same.
Right. Even
coming back from the injury, he hasn't looked like the dominant wide receiver that he was. We'll get to the anytime touchdown market a little bit later, but this is for me a scenario where I would only look of the guys on our board. I would only look to Kyren Williams props. That would be the only thing I'd even consider tonight of the big 3 for the LA Rams, and it would more likely than not be one of those where I'm just looking at those attempts over 20.5. I would expect if the game flow is right, 23 carries from Kyren, 23 from 23 here tonight.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You have to think that the Los Angeles Rams game script is going to be to try and keep Tua Tagovailoa and the rest of the Dolphins offense off the field. You have to think that they want to control the time of possession, which is something that the Rams actually have not been able to do this year. They are 18th in the league in time of possession. They on offense, average under that 30 minutes, 29 minutes, 44 seconds on offense, and they spend 30 minutes and 15 seconds on defense. Again, 18th in the league, pretty much middle of the pack. So they haven't been able to control the game script the way that they've wanted to, if they have wanted to control the clock in their games. But looking at those 3, Kyren Williams, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua, Kyren Williams has gone over in 5 of the 8 games this year on his rushing attempts, 4 straight overs over that 20.5. He's becoming their new bell cow. Week 1, he had a 91% snap share on offense, dropped down to 79. Week 3, he had a 90%, dropped down to 79. So they were working in a bit of a committee or giving him less snaps, but each of the last 4 weeks, he's at over 85% of the snap share, 99% last week. So they love handing the ball off to Kyren Williams. They love having him in the backfield. He's just that kind of threat for that Rams offense. And then looking at Cooper Kupp, 2-2 this year on his receptions and the receiving yards, but with a healthy Matthew Stafford. So the last 3 years with the 2 of them together, 26-9 to the over on his receptions. Granted, they did go 15-1 in that first year together, but 26-9 to the over on receptions and 24-11 to the over on his receiving yards. And his longest reception this season, he's 3-1 to the over, 3 straight overs, and it's less than Puka Nacua's number tonight, 21.5. I do like the over for Cooper Kupp. And then finally looking at Puka Nacua, 1-2 on the overs. Again, did get tossed from the game last week, so didn't get to see much of him. 1-2 on the over on his receiving yards, but in his career, he's 12-8 to the over, and is 0-3 this year on his longest reception. So I would be staying off of that one and really only looking at Cooper Kupp over longest reception and Kyren Williams over his attempts for those props tonight.
Going to the quarterbacks here tonight, Ryan. Tua Tagovailoa, Matthew Stafford. I'm in the camp that this is probably a big completion game for Tua Tagovailoa. And again, my game flow more likely than not is Miami's the one who's chasing as opposed to the Rams. 22.5 on I almost made Tua and Puka one person. Tua 22.5 on the completion side. I'd rather have that than the attempts. I think it's close at 32.5. It seems like a pretty high number, but if Miami's chasing Tua having a game where he's 25-35 makes a lot of sense here. But the bigger thing for me in this game is actually both guys' longest completion. You just lined it up with Cooper Kupp very nicely there. And with Nacua back also, and also DeMarcus Robinson, who has been a very nice deep field threat for Matthew Stafford. 36.5 on Tua, on Stafford, 37.5 longest completion for Tua Tagovailoa. I like both of those. Going square here, I don't really care. I like over on both of these. And especially with both of these defenses susceptible to giving up big passing plays, I would be looking to an over on both of those longest completions, Ryan.
Yeah, I'm there with you on Stafford. I am hesitant on Tua, but again, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are his top two weapons, and they can score from anywhere on the field, so 80 yards is not a question. But Tua this year with his longest completion is 1-3 this season. In week 1, he completed 3 balls for over 38 yards, an 80-yard touchdown to Tyreek, a 63-yard catch to Jalen Waddle, and a 39-yard reception to Devon Achane, all in week 1, and has only completed 1 ball of 30-plus yards since in the other 3 games that he's played this year. So not exactly getting the longest completion there. Really, it's the yards after the catch. It's Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle breaking past the defense, past the secondary in order to get that longest completion. So I'm not exactly sold on that one. But looking at Tua, his attempts 2-2 this year. And again, I don't think they play the air raid kind of game script tonight. I wouldn't be looking at the over on attempts, but his completions since coming back, he's been extremely efficient. 73% completion and 89% completion, respectively, the past 2 weeks. So I like the over, the 22.5 tonight. His passing yards, 248.5, is 1-3 this year, but does have an 8-yard per pass attempt, which is encouraging. So if you do think that Tua has over the 32.5, you have to think that he's going to go over that 248.5 as well. And then looking at the passing touchdown, Tua only has 1-3 and is 1-3 on his interceptions this year. So not big on the passing touchdowns over for Tua, and not big on the interception. But to the point of it, Tua interception, he did have 15 interceptions in 18 games last year. This season, he has 3 interceptions in 4 games, but he threw all 3 interceptions in 1 game in week 2 against the Bills, which he ended up leaving early. So he's been able to take care of the ball when he has had time to throw the ball in the games that he's played this year. So now looking at the other side, looking at Matthew Stafford, he's 3-5 to the over on his attempts, not sold there. 4-4 this season on his completions, not sold, and 4-4 on his pass attempts. So again, not sold. But his passing touchdowns, 2-6 this season. He had 6 straight unders to start the year and has gone over 1.5 passing touchdowns each of the last 2 weeks. I do like it tonight. I don't think the Dolphins will be able to stop the Rams at home in Los Angeles. I think the Rams offense does get it clicking. But also looking at a Matthew Stafford anytime touchdown, if you feel so inclined, it is 10-1. He does not have an anytime touchdown since 2022. He only had 1 in the regular season that year, but did have back-to-back in the postseason. So 3 in 2022, but does not have 1 since then. And then if you want to take a look at the anytime touchdown market tonight, Kyren Williams is the heavy favorite. He had him at minus 220 earlier today. I believe he's still right around there. Yes, still 220. And Devon Achane is the second at minus 105 at DraftKings. I believe our graphic has 110. But I would be looking at the 2 receivers for the Rams, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, as well as the automatic and Kyren Williams. And then there is one all the way down the board on the Finn side. I did include a 22-1 in Dwayne Eskridge. He is the number 2 return man, but on kick returns, he is back there. So he has had kick returns the past 3 kick returns the last 2 weeks for this season. So if you are looking at the Dolphins defense or special teams to score a touchdown, I would be looking at Dwayne Eskridge, 22-1. He does get snaps on offense, not many, but he does have 2 catches this season. So taking a shot, we said that a long shot would happen on Thursday with the Ravens, and that one did happen. So just taking a shot at 22-1, Dwayne Eskridge for the Dolphins tonight. Yeah,
D. Eskridge also, if you're looking for the name and it doesn't show up as it does on our screen there. This is not as good of a market as normally. I would say if you want to take a shot on Waddle, who's now plus 210, I don't mind that at all. Yeah. With Tyreek in. Again, Waddle last week had negative receiving yards, but caught a touchdown and that lost to Buffalo a week ago. The River Craycraft numbers are pretty funny because he was activated today, and now because of Tyreek being in, he's vaulted back up to 10-1. So there are a few all these numbers subject to change that you see on your screen. The one I bet DeMarcus Robinson. I got 3-1 at BetMGM. I think plus 240, plus 230 is a little too short. If you get to about plus 270, you can start thinking about it. But again, BetMGM, as always, shop around. 3-1 was the number that I had on DeMarcus Robinson, who seemingly has more success when he's the number 3 wide receiver as opposed to when he's the number 2. So just keep that in mind with Robinson with the LA Rams. All right, let's take a quick break. When we get back, our college football power rankings and Vinny Magliulo when we get back here on Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.
If you're celebrating a special occasion or just love fine dining, you're in the right place. Come experience the crown jewel of South Point restaurants, Michael's Gourmet Room.
Welcome.
With over 600 different types of wines and magnificent dishes prepared tableside, you'll revel in the rich classic Vegas decor and the best black tie service in the world. This intimate gourmet room has earned accolades galore. Come to Michael's Gourmet Room for an unforgettable dining experience. Another famous restaurant is the Silverado Steakhouse, where you'll find the charm and service that discerning patrons require. From top quality steaks and chops to fresh seafood and desserts, you'll love the award-winning wine list and menu at Silverado Steakhouse. Steak lovers have even more options with primarily prime rib. Catering to hearty appetites, the menu features a variety of flavorful prime rib cuts, dry aged to ensure tenderness, and then seasoned and slowly roasted. Although prime rib is our specialty, it's not the only thing on the menu. There's something for everyone. And if you're craving a taste of Italy, come experience delicious Italian cuisine and the attentive service at Don Vito's. Our culinary team starts with the freshest ingredients and transforms them into traditional favorites. And don't forget Italian desserts. Don Vito's. Savor the taste of Italy. Finally, if sushi is more your style, join us at the popular Zenshin Asian restaurant and sushi bar, where we're serving up the freshest sashimi, nigiri, and sushi rolls. And beyond the sushi, an exciting contemporary Asian cuisine menu, plus a variety of specialty drinks, Japanese and domestic beer, wine, and sake. Balance your hunger with Zenshin.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book Football Frenzy. Jeff Parles, Ryan McCormick. We'll also have Vinny Magliulo in a moment. Ryan, real quick, the line has moved to 2.
Yeah.
With the news that Tyreek Hill will play. So Tyreek Hill, one of the few skill position players actually worth a point to the number, according to bettors. So there's the move there. Total also went up to 49.
Yep.
And as always, people in our chat, as we mentioned with Chris, having a ball in there here today.
Yeah, we did put a poll out there. Who's getting the W tonight? And 71% of you guys said the Rams are getting the win tonight on Monday Night Football. Again, welcoming Lalea, Vince, Minidar, Chris, Sean Higgs, and then anybody else. If you're out there watching, chime in the chat. Let us know your favorite plays of the night. Let us know your favorite plays of the weekend. Anything. Let us know.
Sports by the Book on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're watching us, you're obviously on the channel. So make sure you hit the subscribe button.
Subscribe and like.
If you're watching us. And if you're out there in line for the buffet, also Sports by the Book on YouTube, just come right next to our studio. Go grab a business card or a sheet with all of our fancy headshots on it, telling you all about what you need to know for this show and everything we do here at the South Point studio. All right. We'll bring Vinny in a moment, but our college football power rankings. And boy, Ryan, I had a bunch of changes this week. And I did not have any changes at the top of my rankings where Oregon and Ohio State are separated by less.
Whoa!
Yeah. Hey, there you go.
Whoa!
Oregon and Ohio State are separated by less than a point at the top. If these two play in Indianapolis, I expect Ohio State to be favored. That's all I'm going to say. But they are so close. I think they're pretty clearly the two best teams in the country. Ole Miss vaults all the way up to number 3 for me. Now, here's my reasoning behind this. I've always thought Ole Miss's defense was underrated going into this year. And as people have watched them more, and I know when we bring Vinny in, I know he's made this point on the Friday show. Ole Miss's pass rush is awesome. They have a high-end pass rush. And the question was their secondary going to be able to hold up? And since that loss to LSU, their defense has been great. Their offense has been great. Now, they should get to 10-2. They're going to be an ice-sized favorite of Florida in 2 weeks. They'll be a gigantic favorite in the Egg Bowl this year because Mississippi State's one of the worst power conference teams out there, if not the worst.
Yep.
But when we take quarterback play into account here, and why even with, again, they beat up Georgia. I could have moved Georgia lower, and I think I would have got away with it, but my brain wouldn't let me move them lower than 4. But Ole Miss, to me, is the best team in the SEC at the moment. So they get 3. Georgia, Texas, Notre Dame, Penn State, Alabama, Tennessee are all within a point of each other. It is all tight. All tight. If you wanted to argue anything with me on that, I have no problem. If you said Alabama should be 4 after their thumping of LSU, no problem. I'd have a little bit of an argument on Tennessee because we need to see if Alva plays this weekend against Georgia. They still have not played great against higher-end competition. You can poke some holes in that. But Georgia 4, Texas 5, Notre Dame 6, Penn State 7, Alabama 8, Tennessee 9. And you know what? I can't deny them anymore. Even if it was their worst performance of the year, the Hoosiers moved to number 10 with SMU actually at number 11 for me right now, Ryan. So this Indiana team, their offense is excellent. Now, we're going to learn a heck of a lot in 2 weeks. And I expect Ohio State to still be 2 touchdowns in that game. Expect that for sure. But again, once we get to 10 through 17 are basically separated by a point. It's so tight after the top, tight with the top 2, and then super tight 4 through 9, and then super tight 10 through 17 for me, Ryan.
Yeah, I agree with your top 2. I have the same top 2, and then I have the same one at number 10. But before I get into mine, I just have to say you're welcome to everybody out there for finally giving Miami their first loss. I had them at 10, and now they're gone. So goodbye, Hurricanes. My number 10, I do have the Indiana Hoosiers. Same thing as Jeff. I can't deny them anymore. I do have a couple SEC teams right there behind them, but with how they're playing and kind of the playoff picture, couldn't keep them out of my top 10. Notre Dame, I have at 9. Ole Miss jumps to 8. Them and LSU actually flopped from my power ranking. So Ole Miss at 8 and LSU goes to 12. Tennessee at 7. Yes, a big question about Nika Iamaleava. And then Alabama at 6. I think they had a impressive win, but again, I don't have them as the top 2. They're my 3 team in the SEC. Penn State, I have at 5. Couldn't really move them down. Georgia at 4. I had to move them down because of the performance at Ole Miss, but I think the weather plays into account, and they really just got shell-shocked. They go down and score. You think you're going to get the momentum swing. You're watching Jackson Dart walk off the field, and then the backup marches right down you and punches you right in your face, and you have no idea what you're doing for the rest of the game, and that's really just kind of how it looked for the Bulldogs. But I still think they're the best team in the I guess Texas is right above them, but they're hand in hand right there together. So Texas and Georgia are the best teams in the SEC, and then Ohio State and Oregon are the top 2 teams in the country. And that one for the Big Ten Championship is going to be a fun one.
Assuming we get it, which really at this point, Oregon's a big favorite this week in Madison. They still, if Oregon loses one of their remaining 2 games, it would be a shocker.
Yes.
Because Washington, yet again, take them out of Husky Stadium. They're as bad as anyone away from home this year, and they have to go to odds in the final week. So Oregon's going to be there in Indianapolis, barring something stunning. All going to come down and see if Indiana can upset Ohio State at the shoe 2 weeks from now. Let's bring Vinny in. All right, Vincenzo. I want to ask you before we get into everything else. How far did you downgrade Georgia after last week?
How far up did you move Ole Miss?
Well, I think I mentioned on Sunday a couple of points, a couple of 3, between 2 and 3 points.
Yeah.
I still have Georgia in my top 6. By the way, I've got 7 teams within like 2.5 points.
It's so
of each
close
other.
now.
It's Ohio State, Texas, Bama, Mississippi, Georgia, Oregon, and Notre Dame are. Notre Dame's been upgraded. They're playing very well now. Now, not the schedule that the SEC teams have played. Bama again. Every time you think Bama's you want to write Bama off, they come back with an impressive win like they did the other day, Mississippi. The other thing about Mississippi, Jeff, and you brought up a good point. They lead I think they lead the country in sacks. Their defense has been good. They've got to stop making penalties. They're their own worst enemy in terms of penalties. They've been able to overcome that, but that's going to be something that they're going to have to clean up some.
So to just hammer home,
because God knows the officials are not involved enough. These days.
So to hammer home your point,
depends the conference you get. Yeah,
that was the least penalized game Ole Miss has had all season on Saturday,
and they had a couple that were just pretty. The timing was awful.
They only had 3. They only had 3 for 30.
But they made them count. They made them count, right? I think they were on third and long, and wound up costing themselves a fresh set of downs. So, but they're vastly improved. I'm curious, you guys, where do you have South Carolina?
Chris,
very dangerous team.
So Chris brought it up because Chris said he has them number 10. Mm-hmm. South Carolina's in the back end of that mess. That's all within a 2 points separated. I have South Carolina 16th. So
I've got them 10 also.
Yeah. So again, South
and we didn't talk about. I mean, we didn't talk about our adjustments this week, but I think that's a team. Again, it's about the timing of when you're playing good, and this is anybody that's in the playoff picture right now. That's one of the last teams you want to see.
Well, I will for South Carolina, their remaining 3 games, they play Missouri, who played one of the more ridiculous games that I've ever seen against Oklahoma. By the way, Frank's this is what Frank Nicotero did to me on Saturday. In the middle of the third quarter, congratulated me on winning the under in that game.
No.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
You can't take that. But
I might not show up on Friday for Frank's show now. I mean, that's just one of the biggest no-nos to ever do. And then it became the first game in the SEC in 30 years that have featured 4 touchdowns in the last 5 minutes of a game. So...
wow.
So yeah,
they're going to call that the Nicotero effect.
Yeah, no, I mean it was impressive. It was impressive. But I will just ask you this, Vinny, on a team that neither of us had in our top 10, and a team that right now, quite frankly, could cause at least a lesser game in the college football playoff, and that's BYU. Who just keeps finding ways to win tight games. Utah's AD ripped the Big 12 as badly as any AD I've ever seen after the game for the way that ended up. BYU wins. They don't cover in the Holy War. But Vinny, I mean, I think all we need to know about this team is what the line is this week. Chris opens at 3.5 at home in Provo against the 3-6 Kansas team, and it's now 3. I think that's all you need to really know about how the BYU Cougars are looked at from a betting perspective here in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly not rated. I mean, we had them vastly underrated. We talked about it.
They
last
were
week.
underrated.
In the look ahead, we had them 3 touchdowns against Utah as a dog, and they've been the surprise of the season. So, look, it's still they're going to get everybody's best effort. This is. You have to hope there's not an emotional letdown, right, from last week, winning on a field goal at the end of the game, the controversy at the end of the game. But give them credit, right? They did it in a very hostile environment, in probably the most emotional game that they're going to play all. That's their rivalry game, right? And so, Kansas still dangerous, right, Jeff? Let's face it, right, Ryan? I mean, when you look at them. As far as BYU, let's say, I've got Ohio State number 1. I've got them, probably about on a neutral 12.
Oh, I'd lay it
against to start and then go. Yeah. Now if it's certainly at home or depending on where it is, weather-wise.
Well, those are 2 teams that know cold weather.
But they know cold weather,
yeah.
So where are they going to play? But that's the kind of game too where if you're BYU they rally around that kind of. But from a power rating standpoint, maybe I'm low. You think I'm low, but that's why there's betting.
I don't think you're low. I think that number's too short. Honestly, if it's Ohio State,
you think the number's low? You think the number's short?
Oh, if it was Ohio State against BYU on a neutral, which could very easily be the Fiesta Bowl,
17.
I would lay up to 17 in that game.
I'd be in that middle ground.
Yeah, that would be, but that is a possible matchup in
you have to remember this,
Fiesta
by the
Bowl.
way. When we talk about these, you say, well, that's the number, that's the difference, and then you kind of adjust a little bit in anticipation or anticipate what the betting would be. I'd probably maybe 13 or 14, but that's where they are. I mean, to your original question, in terms of. They're not in the top 10 in terms of a power rating.
No, I don't even have them in the clump of teams in the 17 mix right now. BYU's barely in the top 25 for me at this
They're
point.
right at the bottom of that massive clump between 8 and 19.
In the driver's seat, too.
Well, I mean,
let's face it.
Look, if they win out, there's a real chance that they are the 3 seed in the college football playoff because of the format. I'm not saying they're the third best team in the country, not even close, but if they go undefeated, they probably will get the 3 seed in the college football playoff when this is all said and done.
There's an example, too, where, again, polls, seeding don't make prices, right? Because, to your point, I mean, we get asked it all the time. How could this team that's, quote-unquote, ranked higher than this other team, be an underdog, It's called the power rating, and it's called the real betting world. So, but to your point, they could very well be a 3 seed. They could get a bye.
Well, if they win the Big 12, they will.
Right? So, yeah, may happen.
I think at this point, if BYU makes the college football playoff, they will get a bye because just the way
that'd be the only way for them.
The Power 4 conferences. The champions.
They all get in. They aren't guaranteed a bye.
They're not, but they're likely to get it.
Right.
Because there's so much that's going to happen for the at-large bit, with the at-large teams.
All I will say is if Boise State's 12-1 and BYU wins the Big 12 at 12-1 or Colorado or any of these teams win it at 11-2, that is an actual debate for the committee, especially with those initial rankings having Boise State at 12 and everyone else down near the bottom. Yeah. So that will be interesting to see what happens.
What if it from now until, and there's going to be.
We will be what ifing it the next 3 weeks.
We do it. Look, there's going to, what happens if Alabama loses a close SEC title game and winds up with 3 losses?
So,
from a power rating standpoint, they're going to be in the top 12.
Yes.
Now,
easily.
Of course, that's not going to. But what does the committee do with that? Well, there's other factors that come into play with other teams and things, but they're going to be in the discussion.
It will be fascinating to see what happens in the SEC because there is more than likely now, realistically speaking, because again, Texas is the only team in that league with 1 loss. Everyone else is 2 or more right now. It will be fascinating to see how they handle a 10-3 SEC championship game loser, because more likely than not, that's what's going to happen here. And I'm not so certain Texas isn't going to College Station and losing the last week of the season. So it could be everybody. Could be 10 and
there is going to be a team or a couple of teams that have 3 losses that are going to be in the discussion, and don't be shocked if at least one of them gets in.
I would be shocked if if anyone outside the SEC is even considered. The SEC, yes.
Big Ten, but again, listen, guys, a month ago we were talking about the Big Ten and the SEC having at least 6 to 8 bids, right? There was that school of thought.
Well, I think
that's not going to happen now. I don't think.
Based off of what I said to Chris, I think it's going to be 9. I think if the committee does this correctly, the Big 10 and the SEC get 9 of the 12 teams. Now,
I agree with you.
I don't know. Do you think the Big 10 and the SEC are going to have 9 out of 12?
If done correctly by the committee, there's no excuse for that not being the case.
It means you have 1 Mountain West,
one
Mountain
ACC,
one at large. Yeah.
Assume Boise wins the Mountain West. They're in the ACC champion and the Big 12 champion. Look, if BYU doesn't go undefeated and win the Big 12 championship, there's no excuse for them being in, even if they go 12-1 with a Big 12 championship loss by 1 to Colorado. There's no excuse for them being in. But who knows? So, we'll see how it goes.
Good stuff.
Vinny, tonight, just real quick.
Yeah, you saw the number moved.
Yeah, how about that? A wide receiver moving the number a point.
Well, listen, this is a passing league, as we know these days. But again, Tyreek Hill to that offense means a lot, right? I mean, we know that the quarterback position is the most impactful position to the number. But there are, skill position players, a Christian McCaffrey when, in normal, not so much this year, but although he did impact the move yesterday, A Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins certainly means something, and obviously that's why this game was don't forget, it was a 3 in some spots.
Yeah.
So now down to 2, and the total on the game 49, which is down off of the opener of 50.5, 51, but that will probably go up as we get closer to kickoff tonight.
All right, Vinny, thank you as always.
Good work, guys.
Ryan, good luck tonight.
Thank
If
you.
D'Estrick scores a touchdown tonight, we might not come in on Thursday. Just.
Well, you guys killed it last week.
Well, we've been
right?
look too hard,
Right?
and look. I'll pat myself on the back because I'm not close enough to pat Ryan on the back.
Just giving up money, just
we-
giving
we-
it out right here.
We other than
job.
that money, other than the last primetime game Tampa was in, not the.
Well, even the Baltimore game.
We get in the Baltimore game. The Kansas City game, we had a rough night with the anytime touchdowns. Trip Palmer was a half a yard away from getting there for us, but didn't. But last Thursday night, we were great last Thursday night on everything. Now, granted, when we think a game's going to go over and the game zooms the hell over, yeah, we're going to have a great night. So we'll see how it goes here tonight across the board. Sports by the Books back tomorrow in the morning, 9 a.m. Alex White, Kenny White, get you ready for everything across the sports landscape. A lot of hockey, a lot of basketball. There's I don't want to say an insurmountable amount of college basketball early in this season to go through, but there's a lot right now. By the way, shout out to Vinny, shout out to LIU, who beat Air Force today as a big underdog in the only game. Shout out to the Sharks now of LIU Brooklyn to get that done. All right, we'll see you next time here on Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.
Yeah, they changed it.